So he went and snuck in to this place where like former presidents go. There's a photograph of it's Ronald Reagan with Herbert Walker Bush and a couple other people all standing around, and it's like these are the people that used to hang out at this place, and they would put on robes and they would worship an owl god, and they would burn an effigy, and they're playing, and Alex snuck in and made video footage of this shit, and then no one's denying that it's real. This really did happen. So they're in with these bankers and former presidents, and they're dressed like druids.
Yes.
And some guy brings over something it's an effigy that's supposed to be a body, a wrapped up effigy. It's also a bunch of sticks in a blanket, but it's like shaped like a body.
Yeah.
And then they drop it on the fire, and they're all worshiping an owl god. Have you heard the vampire conspiracy theory? So I guess like some folks believe that vampires are still very much here on Earth with us, but they have evolved with technology the same way we are with things like AI, but they have been faster, like way faster. So here's where it gets freaky. They supposedly created cell phones and social media, not for connection, dude, but for consumption. And the theory goes like, these vampires actually created smartphones and social media with the same intent of draining our energy. It fuels them just like they get from drinking our fluid. Instead of drinking our life essence, man, they're draining our life force through the internet. Every scroll, every like, we're just feeding them. Man, have you ever looked closely at Apple's CEO? Dude's clearly a vampire. Zuckerberg, too. I mean, come on. Jamie, pull up a picture of them. They look like freaking vampires. They seriously look like vampires. I wouldn't doubt it. Stupid story, but still funny to think about. Read every fucking theory on how they built those pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza has 2,300,000 stones in it. Some of them are the weigh between 2 and 80 tons. Some of them are cut from a quarry that's hundreds of miles away. These things point, that pyramid is shaped perfectly. Like, if you fucked up like a quarter inch there, a half inch here, by the time you get to the top, that thing's a mess. But meanwhile, it's not. It's perfect. It's also perfectly aligned to true north, south, east, and west. And they're not really sure how old it is. They think they date it to 2,500 BC, but that's just because of organic particles that they pulled from inside stones. But they also say that they probably could have sealed those stones and resealed those stones over time. You're dealing with like a gigantic mystery of unfathomable proportion.
Walking on planet Earth and you pass by someone, you say, hey, can you point me in the direction of north? I want to walk in the northward direction. They point you, continue to walk, you pass by somebody else, say, hey, which way is further north? And they point you in that direction. But when you get to the North Pole and talk to somebody there and say, hey, how do I go further north? They look at you and say, whoa, that question doesn't mean anything because this is where north begins. There's no notion of going further north than the North Pole. And it could be that that spatial metaphor applies to time. Talk about 1 billion years ago or 10 billion years ago, but if you go to 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang, that may be where time started. And you can't go further back in time than the very origin of time itself.
That freaks me out.
Yeah.
See, that's one that it gets in your head and you go, what do you mean beginning of time?
Yeah.
Why would time have a beginning?
Good. And it could be that time is an emergent quality of reality.
Are you aware of the controversy surrounding the male Mona Lisa? The head of Saudi Arabia bought it for $450 million. The crazy thing is someone bought it at one point in time in the past for $1,500. And they didn't realize that it may or may not be, because this is where it gets controversial, may or may not be the work of Leonardo da Vinci. Or it might be partly by da Vinci. And so they wanted him to donate it to the Louvre in Paris.
Yeah.
But they were like, we're not going to put it next to the Mona Lisa. He wanted it to be next to the Mona Lisa as the male Mona Lisa. Oh. The Mona Lisa, the male Mona Lisa. And they're like, They're like, we're not going to give this the red stamp. We don't even know if this is real. And now it's currently on his yacht. So this $450 million painting is on his yacht. And so art fanatics are like, you can't have a painting on a yacht. You fun conspiracy theory about gold?
No.
It's a really good one. It's from the work of Zecharia Sitchin. who was one of the guys who translated the ancient Sumerian texts. And he believed that the human race is a product of accelerated evolution, and that the Sumerian text depicts these godlike beings called the Anunnaki who come here from a planet called Nibiru that's on an elliptical orbit. Every 3,600 years it comes between us and Mars. It causes cataclysms because of the gravity and all the chaos. And one of the reasons why it came here is because gold is very difficult to find in the universe. Now, if that's the truth about the Earth only has that much gold, imagine that one of the reasons why these beings gave us this desire to have gold, why gold was so popular always, early on, and it was a useless metal. So what, it was pretty. How come you could buy a house with bags of gold? Shouldn't you have steel for a sword or for arrowheads or something like that? Well, anything would be more valuable. Salt was very valuable.
Yeah.
But this is different because this is like a form of money. Like, why has it universally been regarded as valuable, like really early on? And what he said was that they realized that they could take these suspended particles of gold and put them in their atmosphere, and it would protect them because their atmosphere was eroding. And so this would be like a reflective particles they spray in the atmosphere.
Like what Bill Gates wants to do, where he like blocks.
So this
out
is what's
the sun.
crazy about this. This guy wrote about this in like the 1970s. He wrote this, what is it called, the 12th Planet? He wrote multiple books on this, on the Sumerian text. This book is trying to say is the reason why humans are obsessed with gold is because like the aliens designed us to mine and get the gold. They would use that gold to protect their atmosphere.
So they impregnated us with this idea that gold has value.
Yeah.
Because they need it to enhance their ability to keep living. It's very
a fun idea.
All that
if
shit's
you're,
fun.
This is the concept. The theory that many people have is that death opens up a chemical gateway in the mind. And that chemical gateway takes whatever the soul is, whatever consciousness is, and transports it into this new realm. It allows you, your conscious mind, to access this new realm which is available to you upon death. And so a lot of the ancient cultures that did ayahuasca and mushrooms, they would talk about this realm as being like a well of souls. Sitchin, he wrote all these books about this culture from another planet called the Anunnaki. See that thing that he's holding up in front of him? That is a piece of Sumerian art. Yeah. See the star, the sun with all the planets? That is our solar system. It's not just our solar system, that is all the planets in all the right sizes. This was 6,000 years ago. It also depicted this orbit, this elliptical orbit of this planet called Nibiru. This is where the Anunnaki came from. They came down here, they studied some lower hominids, they introduced their DNA into these lower hominids and made human beings. The description of Anunnaki, what it means is those from heaven to earth came. There's these also depictions of these enormous people with these little monkey people sitting in their lap. And this was what he believed was describing the Anunnaki's genetic alterations of monkeys. Not only that, they had the caduceus, you know the caduceus, the symbol for medicine. It's also the double helix of DNA, and that's what he believes it represented. He believes that that caduceus symbol represents DNA.
But it also looks like a guy was just like trying to decorate with two snakes.
Totally.
Doing the tango.
But why does it represent medicine? And why does it still represent medicine?
Evidence that somebody had the capacity to explore the world during the last ice age. One of the things I find most striking is the presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, because we didn't discover it until 1820. And yet it's on maps drawn in the 1500s with great detail, which again were based on much older source maps that have now been lost to us. They call it the Southern Land, and it's larger than it is today, but it was larger than it is today during the Ice Age. What the fuck is it doing on a map drawn in the 1500s, which we know was based on older source maps when nobody knew it existed in the 1500s? To me, the obvious answer is we are dealing with the fingerprints of a lost civilization that mapped the world and that left evidence of that mapping, which ancient map makers found and used and incorporated into their maps.
Family was able to make so much money.
How much money did they make in total?
I mean, if you Google their value, it's between 10 and 20 billion reported. Nobody knows exactly how much. They're a really secretive family. And the other big part of the story that surprised me was the
your embankment. So a that was undertaken on a very large scale by very large numbers of people. It's a wonderful mystery. And what intrigues me is what remains in that 5.5 million square kilometers that has not been investigated yet. We are just, I think, looking at the edges of a mystery. The archaeologists involved, who are mainly from Finland and also from Brazil, feel the same. Their estimate is that there are thousands of these structures remaining in the jungle, and they're open as to how old they may ultimately prove to be. They go back, in the cases of the ones that have been explored so far, at least 3,000 years. This is an intriguing development, completely unexplained in our understanding of the Amazon. And what it suggests is a heritage of extremely ancient knowledge. You don't wake up one morning and, create a perfectly geometrical square or circular earthwork that's perfectly aligned to true north, south, east and west on an enormous scale. There has to be a background to that. There has to be a reason for doing it. And the evidence is none of these sites were lived in. There's no habitation refuse found in them whatsoever. We don't know what they were used for. I make the case in America before that they're connected to a system of ideas which is found all around the world, which is to do with death and the afterlife destiny of the soul.
Weird when this UFO disclosure thing comes out. This guy, David Grush, and Lee said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress and they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession.
Who's the they in that?
Let's read it. Air Force veteran has made a bombshell claim that U.S. government has recovered materials that could be proof of UFOs, including an intact craft of non-human origin, but they are keeping it a secret from the public. David Charles Grush, a veteran and former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and National Reconnaissance Office, has blown the whistle on this information, speaking with several news outlets about the crafts. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Call it a spacecraft if you will, non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed, Mr. Grush told News Nation.
This is like humans have to fight back to reclaim our autonomy and free will from the machine.
Yes.
One clear... So,
okay, Neo.
It's very much the Matrix. It's Neo.
Yes.
I mean, one of my favorite lines is actually when the Oracle says to Neo, "Don't worry about the vase," and he says, "What vase?" and he knocks it over. It's that vase. And so it's like she's the AI who sees so many moves ahead of the chessboard. She can say something which will cause him to do the thing that verifies the thing that she predicted would happen.
Yeah.
That's what AI is doing now, except it's pointed at our nervous system. And and figuring out the perfect thing to dangle in front of our dopamine system and get the thing to happen, which instead of knocking off the vase is to be outraged at the other political side and be fully certain that you're right, even though it's just a machine that's calculating shit that's going to make you do the thing.
Moon landing one's my favorite.
Really?
I got balls deep in that for years. I was completely.
So you think they did not go to the moon?
No, I don't think that anymore.
Okay.
But you know what I think now? I think I don't know.
Okay.
But I do think that it is one of the more fascinating conspiracies that between 1969 and 1972 they had seven attempts, 6 of them successful. Well, they went to the Apollo 13 was the one that they didn't apparently make it, and they had to come back. But that was the only time in history that a human being has been more than 400 miles above the Earth's surface. All the space station missions, all the space shuttle missions, all that stuff is
within orbit.
Yeah, it's low. It's all very low. They went 260,000 miles out and back into deep space, but they had never even flown a chicken out there and see if it comes back alive. Like we really didn't.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I'm not into the space travel one. So
I mean, they did a couple of flybys, like when they went around the moon, you know, early before they landed on the moon.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, without unmanned drones like what we have on Mars and things like that, we've never really sent a living thing out through the magnetosphere, through the Van Allen radiation belts, into deep space. Have it, you know, I mean, there's all these possibilities of solar flares and anything that would have killed them instantly. And they just did that. And then we haven't been able to do that since 1972.
That's the one.
Operation High Jump. So the U.S. government's like, something's going on with Antarctica. There's some activity up there. We want to find out what's going on. So they send this cat named Admiral Byrd up to investigate with a giant fleet, you know?
When was this?
Either around World War II or right after it. According to his journal that they found much later, he basically met with UFOs, Nazi UFOs. So basically, the aliens go down, and Klaus Schwab's dad go down and meet with Eisenhower. It's gonna be like we could either do it one way or the other way. We could do it nice or we can do it the wrong way, and that's where they say Eisenhower made a deal with these aliens that they could kidnap people and do experiments, but they couldn't just do it anywhere. They had specific places, which were our national forest.
Is this something we should be worried about, or is he just overreacting as usual?
I went down a TikTok rabbit hole yesterday.
Yeah, it's good.
I stayed home, smoked and I started reading up on TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm going to read you this because this is so crazy.
Is it good or bad?
Bad.
So what are you saying? It's a bad place to be?
Listen to this. This is from TikTok's privacy policy.
All right.
It said, we collect certain information about the device you use to access the platform, such as your IP address, user region. This is really crazy. User agent, mobile carrier, time zone settings, identifiers for advertising purpose, model of your device, the device system, network type, device IDs, your screen resolution and operating system, app and file names and types. So all your apps and all your file names, all the things you have filed away on your phone, they have access to that. File names and types, keystroke patterns or rhythms. So they're monitoring your keystrokes, which means they know every thing you type. Wow. Battery state, audio settings, and connected audio devices where you log in from multiple devices. We will be able to use your profile information to identify your activity across devices. We may also associate you with information collected from devices other than those you use. 100 years later, 15 bodies were found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room beneath the garden. In 1998, conservationists were doing repairs on 36 Craven, looking to turn Franklin's old haunt into a museum. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. Remnants of more than a dozen bodies, said Benjamin Franklin's house. 6 were children. Forensic investigation showed that the bones dated to Franklin's day. Holy shit. The most plausible explanation is not mass murder, but an anatomy school run by Benjamin's young friend and protege, William Hewson. Oh, just an anatomy school.
Yeah, and we're just going to bury them downstairs.
Note to add in another article about this. Simulation.
There was someone
I
who
said
was-
simulation.
I think that's a
I would
baby
call
formula.
myself out on that one right there.
There was some another genius super wizard kid who was talking about that something about simulations. I forget what.
I was high at the house with the guy who runs my studio, Divine, and we were just fucking laughing, talking shit one day high. Like, what if I may have heard this. I could have been on your show. I could have read this. So I'm not claiming ownership of the thought. But it was like, what if we just come from a universe that's so perfect and shit, and it's boring as fuck, and we just plug in to have all these fucked up weird problems, and that's why everything's getting fucking weirder and crazier, because that's kind of why we're here. That's part of the ride, you know.
You're lying in bed and you're having an insanely vivid and terrifying interaction with aliens every night. Because your brain is just dumping psychedelics into you. And this is your big fear. So you're going to get abducted by aliens again. And then there they are again, leaning over your bed and they're reaching for you.
Constant paranoia.
And then here's the mindfuck of all mindfucks. Maybe psychedelics are a gateway to some other reality, some other dimension that's accessible by these creatures.
I like this.
There's this big thing about the CIA. There was a memo that went out where they were concerned about all these conspiracy theories that were coming out, and they used the term conspiracy theories, and then they said they should try to basically debunk them and make the people who spread them around look like conspiracy theories, basically.
Right.
So the theory is that the term conspiracy theory came from that particular memo.
I think they're good. There's a thing about finding conspiracies everywhere that's not good for your brain. I really believe this. I think that if you go looking for those things and that's all you look for, and you look for them all the time, you can get real paranoid and real crazy. And then there's also a bunch of people that are trying to stop you from doing that because you do expose some crazy shit.
Yeah.
You know, he was talking about Epstein a long time ago.
I know.
A long time ago. He was saying there was a fucking island, and they take all these rich politicians and some celebrities, and they bang these kids. And I was like, come on.